Hello, I'm Paige Counts, Public Information Officer for Caldwell County. Welcome to Caldwell County Today. Today I have with me Sandra Rich from the Board of Elections. Welcome, Sandy.
Thank you for having me.
Today we're going to talk about early voting and the upcoming municipal elections.
Yes, and that will be held on November the 5th, and you will go to the polls on that day. But early voting comes first.
When does early voting start?
On October the 16th, and it will run through November the 1st. We will only have one Saturday that we'll be voting on. That will be on October the 26th.
What's the site for the early voting?
Well, we have two sites here in Caldwell County. One will be at the new Resource Center. The Board of Election has moved to, and a lot of people know that is the library building. So it's at 120 Hospital Avenue, and a good way to find it is the Walgreens drugstore.
That's
We're
right.
right behind it. So that's our site here in Lenoir. Then we have another site in Granite Falls, and that's at 51 Pinewood Road, and it's the Shuford Recreation Center.
Let's talk about who can vote in this election, because this is just a municipal election.
That's correct. And that's the people that live inside the city limits of that municipality. Now, we have 9 different municipalities here in Caldwell County for people to go vote. So it depends on which municipality that you live in, and you'll get that balanced down with all the people that you need to vote on that.
But it doesn't matter, for early voting purposes, if you live in the city of Lenoir, you can vote at the library or at Granite Falls?
That's correct. We have everybody, we pull your name up, they come in, and as they come through, they come up to the people at the computers, they give them their information, pull up your name, and they may ask you for your address to make sure that that is you. And also, if you have a name change or an address change at One Stop, we can correct that for them. And same at Granite, they can do the same thing. They have Lenoir ballots down there, and we have some Granite ballots up here, Blowing Rock ballots. So, you know, we have a lot of coverage here in Caldwell County.
That's right. Now, early voting gives you a chance to register if you're not registered to vote. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's called register and same day vote. So that's only at One Stop. You can't go to the precincts and do that. It's only during One Stop early voting.
So if you haven't registered, make sure you go to the One Stop to early voting.
And to do that, you need to bring with you a driver's license, a power bill, a phone bill, a government document that has your address where you live, a bank statement, and that way we can get you registered. But you do have to have one of those documents with you also.
But it's really easy. I just registered to vote. I moved back to the county, so I just registered to vote. It's really easy, and they're super helpful. So tell us a little bit about, you've got sample ballots.
Sample ballots.
Sample ballots.
And if anyone wants to, they can go on to the website and they can type in their name, and it'll pull up the ballot style which they wish to vote. Now, there's 9 different ones, and this one, and if you look at the top, a lot of people say, well, what does this number mean? Well, that's the ballot style you're going to get for Gainwell. And they go all the way through, and they'll have different cities typed in up here, and then, of course, the candidates. And to read all directions, because like on this one for mayor, they have 3 candidates running, and you can only vote for 1. And then for town council, they can only vote for 2, and they have 4 candidates. So it's very important that you read all the directions and then fill in the oval next to the person's name in which you wish to vote.
Now, do you encourage people to look at a sample ballot before they come to the polling place?
Some people like to. They can pull up their sample ballot, and of course they can bring their sample ballot in to the polls with them and see the people they've marked, and if they want to transfer it over to the real ballots that we give them there at the voting enclosure. Now, you can't pass that ballot that you bring in, that sample with you, over to the next person.
Right.
It can only stay with you, and you take it back out when you're finished voting.
So we didn't talk about what time are the early voting polls open?
Polls will open at 8 o'clock in the morning and will close at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, that's weekdays. And the only Saturday that we're open will only be open 8 to 1.
So get in there, and you're open for, is it about
14 days.
14, okay, it's 14 days. Now, on Election Day, November 5th, what are the hours?
Polls will open at 6:30 a.m. and close at 7:30 p.m.
And that will be the voting place that people are familiar with that they go to in every election.
That's correct.
Where can people find, if they don't know their polling place, where can they find that information?
They just call to the Board of Elections office. We're open 8 to 5, and we'll pull up your name and tell you where your precinct is located, and if you are inside the municipality.
So if you're unsure about if you're inside, if this election involves you, just give them a call, because they're more than happy to answer those questions.
Oh, yes.
What else do we have? We talked about Election Day, early and one stop. What about curbside?
If a person is able to come to the polls and they park in our curbside designated area, we'll go out to the car and get their information, and then they will bring it back in and get their forms for them to sign, and the ballot, which they will be voting, and then go back out to the car. Now, when they bring that ballot and that form out, and it has on it curbside voting, you're stating when you sign that you are unable to come inside the voting enclosure. Now, if a person brings you and they're able to come in, they have to vote inside. And then if they need help and they designate that person to the precinct official, that way they can wait till they come back out and help them mark their ballot. But always remember, when you ask the person to help you, their choice is not the one's. This is your ballot. This is your choices in which you need to vote.
Right. It's totally up to you who you vote for.
Right. When we give you that piece of paper and you sign that you're here to vote, that ballot becomes yours and your choice only.
So that is helpful. But if you can't get inside, it is a good option to have that curbside.
Right, and that will be at one stop and also at the precinct level too.
So it'll be available at both places.
Right.
Okay, what have we left out?
With our new parking over at the library, or the new resource center, we have a large area for them to come in and park. We will have a designated area both in Lenoir and at Granite for our candidates to place their chairs and their information there at the polls. And that's really good that we can give them a space to keep them. They're not supposed to come across the marker that says no politicking from this point. But they can ask you to please, and you can they'll hand you a piece of paper. You can accept it, or if you want to, you can say, I already know who I'm voting for, and come on in. And then now we watch for things as if they bring in a piece of paper and they leave it in the booth. We have to take that piece of paper that's already marked out, and we watch for that at the polls, because we don't want anybody saying that we're leaving stuff in there for somebody to mark their ballot that way. So that's what we watch for inside when we're going around checking the booths out if people are there.
But your precinct workers and your early voting workers, they all receive training.
Oh yes, we always have training before every election. We bring them in and we train them on all of the laws and their paperwork, which they have to do at the precinct at the end of the night. Then we go over the do's and don'ts and what to watch for inside and outside. That's a big important thing that we have to go over our precinct workers with. And our new ones, they come in and we train and go over them with all the materials, the machines, the computers when you pull up people. And it's good sometimes that at one stop we can bring in the new people and let them work with the older people that has been there for a while, and they learn a lot there. And then when they go to the precinct level, they're ready to go.
They're ready to go.
Yeah.
But now for voters, those precinct workers are there to help them
Yes.
as far as like putting your ballot in the machine. So there's really nothing as far as a voter. They're just there to support.
Right. You will always see someone sitting there at the machine as you go out, because we don't want anybody walking out the door. And another reason is when you put your ballot in, and if you'll stand there just for a few minutes, it will come up and say, everything is okay, and then you can leave. But if you've marked too many on your ballot, it will give you this little message, and it will ask you, do you want to accept this ballot and let it go through and count it? Everything will count except for the ones that you marked wrong. Or do you want it returned to you? So you can take it over to the precinct official. They'll spoil that ballot and they'll write on it spoiled and give you a new ballot, and then you go back and mark it again. But you can do that 3 times and then you're out. Like baseball, you got to send it on through.
You just got to send it on through.
Right. So we have someone there in case that does happen. They're not there to look at your ballot.
Right,
They're just there to protect you and make sure that everything's okay.
Right.
And before you leave.
So really it is for people, if you've never voted, it's not something that's a difficult thing.
No.
It's easy. They're there to help you. You just really, mark your choice.
Yes. A lot of people, when they come in, they'll see the precinct worker or our one-stop workers, and in this little box at the top, they write your number off of your computer and the number on the precinct. And the reason why they do that, at the end of voting, after the voting, we got to go back and pull out all those ballots and then report those ballots to the precincts. Because at one stop, all 9 ballots go through the machine, and it provisionals and mail-outs. So we got to divide all that back out and report it back to the precincts. That's the way the elected officials like for us to do that. And we in Caldwell County, I can say that we have more people that vote early than going to the polls because they have the day that they want to choose in which they go to vote.
It does give you a lot of freedom on choosing your day, and it's easier. I mean, sometimes you think it's easier because you may not have to wait in line or if you wait till that day.
Right.
But then there are people like my mother who want the excitement of election day.
Oh, yes.
And she wants the excitement of going to the polls that day. So it really is, it's up to the individual. But if you know that, hey, I may not be in town or that day is going to be really busy for me,
Right.
you have these other opportunities. You have 14 days to choose from.
Right. And we do have another thing that people can do also. If you are shut-in, a family member can come in and request an absentee ballot be sent to that person at home. Or if they call in, we can mail them the application, and then they mail it back to us with all their information on the application. And it has to be a state application.
Right.
Used to, you could write us just a letter and send it in, and we could send you back out the ballot. Now it's a form that has to be filled out. As soon as we get that, we'll process it, and then we'll mail it out to the person that's home. But once it comes, you need to read all instructions on it. On the back of the envelope, it said you must have 2 witnesses that you voted that ballot, or a notary. That's acceptable, and fill out all the information on the back so that when it gets back to us, we can check that and pass it on to the board members. They make sure everything's on there and check it off, and then it's processed and put in the absentee machine.
So you can vote absentee if for some reason you can't get to early voting. And I think it's also important to note that right now we're just doing the municipal election. So
Yes.
if you have to live inside the city limits, whether that's the town of Gamel or Lenore or Sawmills, one of the municipalities here.
Right.
But if you don't live in municipalities, now's a good time to register to vote.
Yeah, anyone can come in at any time and register to vote at the office. We have all the applications there and give you a lot of information. And then once you fill out the form to register to vote, we'll process that form, and then you will get a card in the mail. And the card, if everything's correct on it, then that's for you to keep. If something that comes up and you move, there's a place on that card. You can fill in that information, mail it back to us, and we'll get you corrected again.
So really right now is a good time to start planning to
Oh, yes.
register or to get out and vote in your municipal election.
Right.
Sandy, thank you for joining us today. Is there anything else we need to talk about?
Well, be prepared for next year.
Be prepared for next year. That's what I'm saying. Go ahead, register to vote now.
Right. And everybody needs to come out all in the municipal election. Though people look at it, maybe this isn't as important. Municipal elections are very important because it's what local funds and your municipality is going to do for you. So yes, it's very important to vote in a municipal election.
It is. It really, these people are, I mean, they obviously have an interest in your community, so
Yeah,
go out and make your choice heard.
that's correct.
Thank you.
And thank you.
And thank you for watching Caldwell County Today.